and roll, Chicago. Rock and roll, Chicago, my hometown. Well, I was born in the city, gonna rock your city, Chicago. Chicago rock and rollers are the best.
It's Paul Martin
And Ray the Roadie.
for the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast. How you doing today, Ray?
I'm feeling stronger every day. How about you?
Oh, you know, this sounds like a song.
It is a song.
It is.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, this is only the beginning.
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's just such a hard habit to break.
Oh, boy.
I know it better end soon. But you know, Paul, you're my inspiration.
Okay, yeah, stop, please, really.
You know, it's not just a Saturday in the park here either.
No. Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. Ray's going to continue to rattle off songs by the group Chicago. Go ahead.
That's right. It's kind of like a contest. We should have a call-in. Caller number 3. Who are we interviewing today?
Well,
Except that we're not live.
I can tell you.
Can you? You would win.
I would win. I would win. As a matter of fact, I'm going to win. I'm going to win the lottery is what I'm going to win.
Oh, I hope I win it too, because
of course, by the time this airs, we'll both be losers and we'll be back.
that's right. If we come back again next week, you know we
right.
lost.
If this show airs.
That's right. If this show airs. Yeah. That's right.
We're meeting today with the Chicago Experience.
The Chicago Experience.
The Chicago Experience. They're a band out of Chicago playing lots of Chicago.
That's right. And playing it very well, I may add.
Yes, they are. We spoke with Eric Caliendo. We spoke with Brian Hemstock, Jim Massoth, Tim Rutter, and Steve Frost. And that was only 5 of the 9 guys that are in the band.
Yeah, you know what? I forgot to ask Eric if he's any relation to Frank Caliendo.
I don't know.
You never know.
You never know. There's a lot of Caliendos around, I think.
Yeah. That's true. Kind of like a calzone. There's calzones everywhere.
Okay.
But only a few good ones.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, these are a bunch of talented guys, extremely talented guys.
Yeah, extremely talented, and they've all got degrees in music and music degrees from somewhere or another, and they're very talented. So let's get to it and see what they have to say.
Let's get going.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Tonight we're speaking with a bunch of talented musicians, and I do mean talented. We're speaking with the Chicago Experience from Chicago. How are you guys doing tonight?
Hey, guys.
Good.
I see we've got 5 of you here today.
Yeah.
There's how many in the band, though?
9.
9?
Yes.
All right. So I say you're talented because, I mean, I've read your bios, and I see that many of you have degrees in music, and that's very cool. I mean, so when did the band get started, and how did the band get started, and why Chicago music? Music of Chicago, I should say.
Steve, you want to take it?
Great, I'll take that one.
All right.
Well, how the band got started is a story if you're in for a good story.
We're always in for a good story.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, man. So, I think the band probably, this iteration of the band's been together a little over 5 years, 6 years, but the band has been around probably 10 or 11 or 12, right, Brian?
Yeah, that's about right. About 11 or more years. Yeah.
'Cause Brian and Steve, you guys were the first two, sort of, going back to the very beginning.
Yeah. Actually, Adam Cowger, our drummer, is the first and only drummer. So he's probably then Ron came in, our guitar player Ron Brandt, and Brian shortly, somewhat shortly after that, and Tim. But we were under different management, and that's part of the story. But the individual put the whole thing together. I mean, I think we could all agree he chose a great band. If you want to be a tribute band, I don't think there's a better band than Chicago to be a tribute band, just because of the great music. It's all about the music, and to see the joy on people's faces when we're playing. These songs are timeless, and this band is true to the music, and it's just a great experience. It's the Chicago experience. But so going way back, there was an individual who did a good job of trying to cultivate a lot of good local talent. Did a good job of getting it off the ground, and then things started to evolve as we started to do more gigs and more demanding things, and things evolved where we got some other players in, and a lot of us go back a lot of years. Some of us don't go back a lot of years.
Well, yeah. Well, Tim and this is Jim talking. Tim, myself, and Ron and Paul Wood, who's not in the Zoom chat right now. Too. We probably go back 25 or more years, right? I mean, I would say different bands and all sorts of stuff and.
Yeah, Ron and Paul and myself, I've known those guys most of my life. So the three of us go back probably closer to 30 years, 40 years, maybe in some cases.
Yeah. Well, Ron and Paul went to high school. Didn't they go to grade school together or something?
Grade school and then high school together too. Yeah.
Yeah. We're in a lot of ways we're like old friends,
I don't think, did they make it through high school? But anyway,
start gigging and dropping out of classes and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
But we've had the really good fortune, like I said, the group that is together now, and Eric just joined us this summer. Eric's the latest addition to the band. Adam Brill was our Terry Kath vocalist for many years, and Adam and his family moved to, I think it's North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
North or south? What's the difference? But so we miss Adam, but we're glad to have Eric. Eric just fit right in. And we're very, I think we're all very grateful because it was seamless. This isn't exactly the type of music you could just plug anybody in. It's pretty demanding.
Well, it's very stylized. That's the thing. I when I first joined the band and playing in different types of tribute bands and whatnot, you really get into the weeds of the music and it's there's a lot of little idiosyncrasies about it that you don't realize, until you start really diving into it,
Absolutely.
That's been really cool.
The way that things mesh together. And we rehearse a lot as sections, like the horn section will get together and kind of work out a lot of the voicings of the charts and stuff.
And eat pizza.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe some cigars.
Eat pizza, smoke cigars and drink vodka.
And then we might do some playing.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, you couldn't have picked a better time to join the band in the midst of a pandemic.
I know.
Yeah.
I actually got the call last spring, and they're like, "We've got all these gigs this summer, and we'd love to have you do it." And I'm like, "I've signed me up. I'm on board." And then boom, everything's canceled. And it was kind of funny because I knew Ron Brandt, the guitar player. I played with him in other groups before, and he's the one that kind of found me and brought me into this. And so he knew me, and he knew what I could do. But I hadn't gotten to meet the other guys. And I mean, this went on for months, and I'm learning the stuff on my own, and he's sending me music, and I'm practicing and getting ready. And finally in August, some stuff was finally going to happen. So it's like, all right, we need to rehearse. And then Brian was the first guy I met, and Brian and Ron actually came over to the house, and I was very nervous and like, man, I hope these guys like me after all this. And I kind of had to leave some other bands to make this work because I realized what a commitment this group is, and I'm so glad I did it because these guys are amazing, and it's absolutely worth everything I've gone through to do it. And I finally got to meet the rest of the guys, I think 2 weeks before our first gig. And it was pretty nerve wracking because I'm like, I did a lot to get ready for this, and I'm like, I hope this works out. And from, the first song, for me at least, I felt super comfortable with them. And this is kind of the band I've been waiting to be in my whole life. I've been playing in groups since I was 15, and I've loved every group I've played in. But Chicago was one of my favorite bands from when I was a little kid. And actually, when I was growing up, when I was first born, my dad was a rock and roll musician my whole life. And unfortunately, he passed away 4 years ago, and I'm trying to kind of keep on what he started. And when I was first born, he was in a band called the Elgin Watch Band. And it was a Chicago tribute band. And I've got some recordings of that. And it's it's kind of crazy how similar it is to what we're doing now. And, here I am 50 years later playing that same music that he was playing when I was born.
What did he play?
Cool. And I'm very excited to be with these guys.
What did he play?
He was a trumpet player. In the Chicago group, he was a trumpet player. He also played keyboards and sang and sax and flute, kind of did it all. He was a band director, could play everything, and had rock band growing up in my house for my entire life. And I actually played in a band with him and my sister band. It was called Cottonmouth, and then it morphed into the Ultimate Party Band. And I played with him for 25 years. He had that.
I hear those tapes, man.
Yeah, he had that band going for literally 46 years that, never stopped taking gigs.
So now, you're also a high school band director, correct?
Junior high band director.
Junior high.
Yeah,
and what do you play? What do you play?
Trombone.
I know in the band you sing, right?
In the rock band, all I do is sing, which is that's been kind of interesting for me too. Because every other band I've been in, I play keyboards, I play trombone, trumpet. But I've really in the rock and roll world, I really love singing. That's what I love doing the best, and this band's giving me that opportunity, and it's just been a blast.
And whose parts do you sing as far as Terry Kath or Peter Cetera? Or?
Terry Kath. Mr. Hemstock is the Peter Cetera man.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah.
Brian, give us some of your history.
Well, I'm the youngest member in the band, so I like to remind people of that.
Awesome. Great.
I'll be 34 in February, but I grew up in Wisconsin and then went to school at Western Michigan University. I've got a jazz studies degree in voice. So graduated 2009 and then moved to Chicago for about 3 or 4 months. Ended up getting an opportunity to audition for the world famous Glenn Miller Orchestra. And they picked me for the job. I toured with them for about 2.5 years as just their male vocalist. So they had a male and a female, and then full big band from there. It was an amazing experience. On the road 300 days a year. Right out of college, it was all I could have asked for. Of course, some great experience just musically and meeting a bunch of different guys. Obviously, jazz was kind of an interesting take at that time in terms of the big band stuff. I was the guy out of college, a lot of guys like me, and then plenty of, seasoned veterans that have just been playing that music their entire life. So I learned so much through that experience, but didn't end up want to being on the road all the time. So, moved back to Chicago in 2012 and, actually, previous to going, had just started. We were talking kind of about the conception of the band and whatnot. I answered a Craigslist ad at the time. Ended up recording an ad recording an album, for that band, trying to get things off, get things going at the time. They were just getting started. We were called 25 or 64 at that time. Told them, hey, I've got a great opportunity. I've got to leave for this touring band and an experience for myself. And when I came home, I checked in to see if they were still working on things, just to try and find a band to get started when I returned home. They were still doing things. So kind of picked up where I left off there. And that would have been 2012. So it's been 8+ years for me pretty much with this band. It's insane to think of that. So that's it for me. Peter Cetera stuff has been just such an amazing opportunity for me. I always tell people I wish I could write them like that. They really, the way that he uses his voice is so unique and really, a joy for me to try and do every time we're on the stage.
Well, imagine doing all that and playing bass at the same time. I mean, it's like that's just always just amazing how there's all these sort of polyrhythmical kind of way the lyrics of the vocally the songs are, and then you sit there, jumping away in the bass at the same time.
Yeah, walking the line as he's singing, in the stratosphere. Absolutely.
Yeah, he wasn't too shabby of a bass player either.
No, right? Yeah.
But Brian, just to tag on to something you said, he is the youngest, and what's really cool about this band. And it's kind of like Chicago's audience, it spans generations. One of the coolest things when I first met Brian and Adam, our drummer, is like, man, these are young guys. And I can't tell you how cool it is to see these guys really learning the music. Nobody in this band is phoning it in, but most of us in the band grew up with it. It's kind of in our genes, but these guys, it's like, it's so cool to see their eyes light up. Like when we did, a couple years ago, we did the entire Chicago 2 album. We were at Acorn Theater, and, the first half of our show was the entire album from start to finish. And so talk about deep cuts, and just seeing the looks on everybody's faces like, whoa, these are cool tunes.
Well, I remember that was at the Acorn Theater up in Michigan. I remember watching people, because, we're pretty up far in front of the horn section is, and I'm watching people on their phones checking to see that we were doing everything in album order. I mean, you feel like rabid fans. I mean, I had some woman come up to us at a festival like 2 or 3 some odd years ago, and I don't know, I'm losing track of time because of COVID. It's crazy, but because we really go out of our way to make sure all the sounds of the songs are exactly the way they were originally recorded. Because you can have people write arrangements for you, or we do some ourselves, or you buy, and there's always stuff wrong with it. I mean, it's like we get to the horn section gets together all the time. We'll buy a chart, and it's just a mess. It's like the notes are wrong all over the place. So we go through everything, and the singers do the same thing, and the rhythm section does the same thing. Like we'll make sure it's right, and then you add the live energy, the live show to that, and it's a cool thing. And I remember there was this woman who came up to me. I think it was Palos, guys, and she was just sobbing, like she remember her and her husband who just died a couple years ago. They went to see Chicago at such and such a show. And I mean, it grabs people emotionally. And that's the thing that amazes me every show.
Yeah.
That the audiences are just all over it. And, it's us, but it's the music, it's just, it's incredible. Yeah. I mean, Ron likes to talk about the pre and post Terry Kath, versions of the music and all that.
Lovingly, he likes to talk about that lovingly.
Lovingly. And the early days of Chicago really was more like a jam band. I mean, they were sort of vehicles for the real prolific soloists like Pankow or Kath or whoever to kind of go off on stuff. It's interesting, like all the different, over all the years and the way the sounds have morphed. And I don't know. I love that.
Well, I think they kind of honed their sound over years and perfected it and got it to a point where they wanted it, Well, you're right. It was they were kind of a jam band with I'm a Man and songs like that. I mean, those were basically jam songs,
Yeah. Yeah, South California Purples and all that
right.
Stuff. But just to rewind a little bit, you asked about, like Brian mentioned, we were originally called 25 or 6 to 4, the Chicago Experience. And when we broke away from the original management, we're kind of all sitting around going, what are we going to call ourselves? And there's if you Google Chicago tribute bands, you'll get a dozen or more of bands that will use a song and say with the tagline, the Chicago Experience or a Chicago Experience, yada, yada. Right. So we just said, let's just call ourselves the Chicago Experience, and that's how that came about. And from that day forward, that's what it's been.
A lot of tribute bands tag on a song name or something like that.
Sure.
So Steve, tell us about your history a little bit.
Oh, born and raised in Chicago. I huge Chicago fan since when I was a youth, and I even went to DePaul. I studied with, one of the teachers that Lee Lockname did, and it was all my life. I was just a huge, huge Chicago fan, just total Chicago freak. And, played with a lot of, rock bands, jazz groups. Spent a lot of years on the Odyssey cruise ship. I don't know if you remember that, downtown Chicago. and just played with a lot of different people. And that's when I first met Ron, and years ago, and playing some clubs and stuff like that. And when Ron called me and said, "Hey, I'm in this," we hadn't talked in a few months because this gig we were on together disbanded, and he said, "Hey, I'm in this Chicago tribute band. They're looking for a trumpet player, and I recommended you. Are you in?" I'm like, "Are you kidding?" Yeah. Well, give me a minute. Yeah. And so I'm very grateful for that, and that it's been a great time. At the time I was playing pretty regularly with my brother's a sax player, Mike Frost, and we played a lot of the clubs together. And he was the entertainment director on the cruise ship, and we played forever together. And I was playing really regularly around town in some of the jazz clubs and things like that. And I was also playing, substituting in on the Buckinghams. So I was okay. I want to be part of this, but I can't play kind of. Like Brian said, had to step out and do his thing with that tour. And I think it may have been interpreted the wrong way, but, because I said, yeah, I'd like to be your number one sub, and oops. Yeah. But then as things would work out, I just became the regular.
It kind of sucks you in, and especially as good as this band is now. I mean, all of us have all sorts of different things going on in our lives, that we do to put the food on the table and whatnot. But we all make time available for this. I mean, depending what the schedule, is as is presented to us as time goes on. We always kind of make ourselves available. And I think, I've said this, to over and over again, talking to other people about, post-COVID, what's going to happen. I think it's going to be insane. We already have about 12 dates in the book right now.
Yeah, a little more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're almost at the point where you hate booking the gig because you don't want to be able to, you don't want to have to cancel it.
Yeah.
But
again, yeah, exactly.
We were supposed to be at Acorn again in February, Valentine's weekend, because last February we do we do Acorn a couple times a year. It's just a wonderful venue.
It's a cool place, and it's
an awesome place.
Cool
yeah,
and all 9 of you fit on the stage.
Barely.
Yeah,
just barely. Yeah.
Barely. Yeah, we all have to inhale at the same time.
We have 6, and it's tough to fit us all up there. Right?
Yeah, here we go. Yeah. So we were supposed to be there again, we actually did our CD release show last February, and it was just insane, but unfortunately this February is not going to happen because of the situation we're in. We could talk about our live CD though, if like.
You guys got a live CD, huh? Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ray. As luck would have it, as you guys know, nowadays with all the great technology, you're playing a live show and there's a digital board, and the sound guy will say, "You want to buy your tracks from tonight? Your files?" And we're like, "Yeah," And it started another great venue that we've had a wonderful relationship with, Harmony Park in Arlington Heights, and that was the first one. It was a couple years ago, and we're like, yeah, we'll take our files, whatever. And then we
wait a minute, they would sell them to you?
Yeah, they sell.
The sound man was making a little extra cash in the site.
Yeah, we're all about rising tide raises.
Yeah, I ran sound for many years, but I never sold them. I don't know when they think of that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So then we did the next year or 8 months later, we're over at Acorn, and same thing. Hey, you guys want your digital fund? Yeah. And then, so, we're looking at it, let's do something with these files. And I got to say, I am totally, we're all very proud of this project because it's live. It's not a studio project. We have the good fortune of Jim Massoth having a recording studio where we can mix it down. And Jim, did a wonderful job of mixing, and I'll let Jim go into more detail, but I could say, so we got the cool thing about this CD, it's 17 songs, so it's a great value. It's 17 great tunes, a couple deep cuts, and they're from 2 different venues, about even amount of tunes from each venue. So you got kind of that big outdoor show in Harmony Park, Arlington Heights, then you got that intimate venue, Acorn, that we love so much.
Saturday, a 4th of July and Saturday in the park. I think it was a 4th.
So it's a really cool CD. And Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, we were lucky because that show, not this February, the year before, when we did the Chicago 2 set. It was towards the end of the summer, and we had done a whole bunch of gigs before this. So the band was absolutely on fire. I mean, it was like 100%. So we walked away with files from that, and plus the Harmony Park was good also and whatnot. And, we all kind of run the band sort of as a co-op. We everybody kind of contributes things in their own way, and we split the proceeds pretty evenly. So it's like what this was sort of my thing that I could offer the band. It's like, let me take, I have the studio and I was able to grab those files and turn them into a great project. And the thing about it is it's a really good representation of what the band sounds like live. And that is really kind of what my whole vision of it was, just to kind of keep that energy. Because you think about it, you go back to, years and years, our favorite records are always the live recordings.
Yep. That's where all the energy is.
They're not the best recordings. Sinatra at the Sands. You got Chicago Carnegie Hall. All the Little Feat. I mean, you could go down the list of all the amazing live shows, and those are our most favorite recordings. Because the energy's there.
Yep.
And it's usually all your favorite songs too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So Jim, tell us, you play saxophone, and besides having a recording studio, you play saxophone and flute, correct?
Saxophone, flute, and clarinet.
Oh, I see.
Although the clarinet's buried in my closet somewhere, on purpose.
That's where it belongs.
That's right. He's got a lamp in it.
I'm married to a clarinet player. I tell those jokes all the time. I get.
So you have more. Keep them coming. Yeah.
That's right.
So Tim, tell us a little bit about your history.
Sure. I'm like some of the other guys. I'm born in, raised in Chicago area. Been around here most of my life, except for being on the road with bands on occasion. Like the rest of these guys, I grew up absolutely loving Chicago. I played trumpet as a kid, like in grade school. So Chicago kind of appealed to me back then. But first time I heard,
how many trumpet players we have here? 1, 2, 3.
Too many.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Brian also, right? So 4.
Yeah.
Hey, who didn't play trumpet? Come on, guys.
Yeah. Mine's also buried away in the closet, but that's all right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
I was the youngest of 4 boys, and there were already 2 drummers. My parents said no more drummers. But yeah, no. So one of the first times I ever heard a live performance of a band, surprisingly, was a Chicago tribute band, a Chicago cover band that my oldest brother played in, called the Brass Odyssey, and this was back in the '60s. And I still to this day remember hearing them do 25 or 624 live, with good trumpet players and good musicians in it, and going, wow, I was hooked from that point. I was like, that is the coolest music. And through the years, listened to a bunch of different music and went off in different areas, played guitar for a number of years in some rock bands, and goofed around with things like that. But the music I always liked always had horns in it, whether it was Chicago or Earth, Wind and Fire or Chase or, some of the bands like that. That's always where I came back to, was that. So, so I did a tour with both Paul and Ron, who aren't on this call, but with the Crying Shames for about, 15 or 18 years through the 80s. And so, I played with those guys and a lot of gigs. And at the end of that, it was kind of one of those things where it had just run its course for me. And I said, I'm going to take a little time off. And so I had not been playing out, and I was just kind of, working on woodshedding some stuff. And Ron called me up and he said, man, I'm in this cool band. You got to come and hear me, hear us play. And it was the place out in St. Charles. So my wife and I went out and paid for tickets because Ron was too cheap to even comp me some friggin' tickets. I remember just, kind of sitting there and being taken back to the 60s, taken back to the first time I had heard Chicago music and going, wow, that is amazing. So I talked to Ron the next day and I said, hey, if, the bass slot ever opens up, give me a shout. I'd love consideration for that. And kind of like everybody else, the phone rang one day and Ron said, hey, the bass spot is, is yours to lose if you want it. And I said, sure, absolutely. It was it was kind of one of those things where I played Chicago music in bands over the years, and like a lot of us did, this was a different world. This was sitting down and learning the Chicago songs on bass. And somebody had alluded to this earlier. Peter Cetera is known for his vocals, and is hardly in the same genre and compared to a Jaco Pastorius or a Marcus Miller. I challenge any bass player to sit down and try to learn this stuff note for note, because the guy is a monster bass player. And again, playing the songs for, in bands, in cover bands and in bar bands, you're playing I'm a Man, you're playing Beginnings, a couple things like that. But sitting down and learning these songs note for note gave me an entire different appreciation for not how great of a singer he was, because we all know that, but how great of a musician, how great of a bass player Cetera was. Here I am today, on this call.
Hey,
we all know how great of a bass player Tim Rutter is.
hey, there you go.
This has been an unbelievably enjoyable musical experience.
With this sort of year off that we've taken, it's like start reassessing things. And it's at this point in my life, it's like one of the few things that I do musically.
Yeah.
And we really look forward, during the summer, we get really busy doing a lot of festival dates and all sorts of that kind of work. And it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's one of the, Steve had mentioned before that if you didn't hear it, we do have a live CD available, but it's one of the CDs I listen to. Because when we play this music, I'm playing it. I'm thinking about playing it. And it wasn't until we actually did the CD and I sat back and listened to it and went, holy crap, this is a good band. Where you actually heard it as a full unit and could appreciate how good the players are in this band, and how not only how good they are, but how great they are at playing Chicago music, which is again, it's a different skill. This is not a band for jobbers.
Yeah.
No, you can't just show up and sight read a chart and do this.
No.
To take some homework.
Yep. But there's so many little idiosyncrasies. The more you listen to it, the more you play along, the more you pick up. And it's there's never a time, I have never in any of these songs said, boy, I'm bored of playing this.
You got to pay attention.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
And most of us, most of it's in our heads down. And, but like Tim said, we're really true to the music. It is pretty involved at times, especially. And, being true to that sound is really what we're trying to do. The spirit and the sound of that band. I think the only real arguments I've heard since I've been in here is over the music, of going back and listening and saying, no, this is the way it is.
That's one thing I've noticed being the new guy coming into this, and I've been playing in bands forever. And this band, the attention to detail in this rock band it's intense and it's great. I love it. It shows. You hear it.
This is Paul Martin
And Ray the Roadie. And we're here to talk to you about GHS strings.
That's right, Ray. Whether you play electric guitar, acoustic, or bass,
or even banjo, mandolin, or ukulele, then GHS has the strings for you.
GHS strings are easy to play with a rich, full balanced tone available in many different gauges.
Great for all musical styles. So if you play
with the best. Play GHS strings.
Well, a hypothetical situation. You're at a festival and it's finally stopped raining and they said, okay, guys, you go on stage and do one song. What's the song off the set list that you guys do?
Oh, my God.
The Closer, man. Feeling Stronger.
That's a good one, yeah. There's so many great
That's a good one.
We close most of our shows with that song, and it's just like the best, man.
It's insane. Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many. It's like hard to pick them,
Yeah, well, I just like to ask, what you think would most emulate the Chicago sound?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
I mean, it's so many. There's like these different eras,
Right. So many.
Saturday.
I mean, we do the open for Just You and Me. It's like I'm in my Chevelle on a date in 1972 again. You know.
Well, you are my love in my life, and you are my inspiration. Just you and me, simple and free. Baby, you're everything that I've ever dreamed.
And I think that's what happens with people. It's like there's all these like iconic sort of riffs, and you know, we'll kind of quote the different elements of the solos once in a while. I mean, Ron will take some of the Kath, you know, like lines from the solos, and he'll quote that, and he'll go off on and do his own treatment on things. But you know, people hear that stuff, and it's like it hits them emotionally, you know.
Yeah, it's nostalgia. You know, it really does kind of take you back to that moment, like you said. It's when I first heard this or whatnot. So
yeah, totally.
So Ron Brandt is in here. Ron is a guitar player and
Yes.
And vocals. Now, did I read that does he do the Robert Lamb parts, singing?
he does. Yeah. He's also our musical director. He's pretty much counting every tune off. He's got a lot going on. Certainly, you know, super talented in his own right on so many levels. But honestly, he's similar to all of us. You've heard these guys tell the story. I can tell you my first live album set was actually Chicago. You know, I certainly, we all go back to, you know, that moment where we heard it. Ron, hands down, will tell you Terry Kath is the best guitar player on the planet. He's followed him. He's emanating him as a player. It really shows. It really helps. You know, that type of mentality is pretty much in most of these guys in the band. So, but he's certainly a talented guy and doing a lot of things for us. So,
yeah, we really appreciate that too, because you can really tell the Terry Kath influence in Ron and his sound, and that's something else, that a small nuance. But you know, if you're going to play Chicago, the guitar player,
That's pretty critical.
better sound like Terry Kath.
yeah.
And he does. So it's just wonderful. Yeah.
There's these particular tunes, man, that have this like wall of sound that you know, when you put everything together, it kind of hits you like boom, like all the Open to Old Days is one that I always, you know, kind of, it's like you just hear that sound. It's like, oh wow, man, it's just this absolute wall of sound coming at you.
Well, everybody grew up listening to Chicago when they came around, and every radio station was playing it. I mean, you flip around and you heard the song after song after song, and it kind of gets ingrained in you. And when you hear it, you're expecting it to sound like it did when you heard it on the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And we stretch out too. I mean, we do some deep cuts, like It Better End Soon, which was perfect for the last year or two. You know, or at least the last 10 months or whatever. And you know, we stretch out on that. We stretch out on Just You and Nina, and give Jim, you know, a chance to stretch out. So, you know, we're being true to the music. We're also having the freedom to add our own personalities. But you know, there's certain things you just don't mess around with and try to say, oh, that's because it's my own. You know, you know,
we all get a chance to kind of step up front, and it's your time to shine. But in the generality of it, you're part of a team. It's like you have to kind of think of it that way, you know. And the power of the music comes out because of that.
And everybody in this band, they're all experienced performers. And one of the big thing about being a performer and being successful at it for so many years is realizing that doesn't matter what gig you're at, there's somebody out there in that audience that is going to see you for one time in your entire life. And it's that night that you're there. And it doesn't matter if you're off or not. You got to be on that night, and you got to come through. You got to have that mindset. Every show I play, I try to make sure I'm in that mindset.
Yeah. Well, that's why you fit in so well. You know, it's like I've done that before, where I sub on you know, amazing bands that, like, you know, maybe their saxophone player couldn't make a gig. Or I played with the Ides a couple of times, or I've subbed on Chevrolet a couple of times. And you're walking into this, like, it's like a friggin' hurricane. And it's like you walk into the situation where they're like on fire, and you got to be prepared. And then, but once you kind of get that together, it's not that it's easy. It's just, it flows, you know, and you fall right into the energy of the band.
Now, you guys have been together for quite some time. Has anybody written anything original, or has there ever been any talk about doing anything original in the Chicago vein?
Not really.
No.
Yeah. I mean, the nature of this group, it's a tribute to Chicago. I mean, that's kind of what we do. Although we will do gigs where we'll add material from some of the other horn bands, Tower Power, whoever, if we need to fill up some space with where we need some extra time. But I don't know.
What about outside the band? Anybody done any writing?
I did when I was younger in college and stuff. I had a little album of stuff, but it's been a while.
So tell us about we don't want to leave out Paul Wood. He's a keyboard player and guitar player too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tim, you could tell us about Paul.
Jim, you probably know Paul better than anybody. Paul's an incredible musician. He's, multi-instruments. Paul's a great singer. One of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet on earth. On top of being, an unbelievably gifted musician. Paul has perfect pitch, which is, a nice little trivia thing. But I played with the early 80s and, playing a bunch of different genres of music and, in some of those things like Jim, like you alluded to, bands coming through towns, the Coasters, the Drifters, bands like that.
Oh, that's right. You did a bunch of those. I remember that. Yeah.
A bunch of shows like that together. And Paul, Ron, and myself and my brother Jeff played in a band called Scramble, which is a bar band that's still around out there playing around the bars since the early 80s, late 70s. So, and Paul has always been kind of the core heartbeat. Anybody who knows Paul's not gonna be the guy out there screaming, "Hey, pay attention to me." But man, you listen to what that guy does, and it's hard not to pay attention to him.
Well, he's like an anchor, a good piano player in a band like this. You're like the anchor for the whole group,
Yeah.
And you sort of, especially the horn players, just sort of lean on it,
Yeah.
You hear that stuff. Yeah, Paul was my recording studio that I'm a part owner of. He was one of the owners of the studio a bunch of years ago. He was in a band called Mariah. Remember Mariah? That was Ron and him were in that. They were a bit in the 70s, right?
All I know is there's some great pictures of those guys in leisure suits in that band.
and then Paul and Tim's brother Jeff, Rocky Penn, who's also in the Buckinghams, are all in the Crying Shames.
We don't want to leave out anybody. What about Adam?
Adam's he's a professor at Joliet Junior College that runs the whole percussion department there. He's got classical training in percussion and drums. So a lot of that's it brings that skill set to the thing.
No, Adam's an amazing musician and kind of like Brian. I mean, he's one of the other young guys in the band, and it's just amazing how he can get the signature to Danny Seraphin stuff nailed, and he is our rock. He is the rock of the band. I mean, he's the foundation, and I can't say enough about the guy. And just speaking of Danny Seraphin, we've had the good fortune of playing a number of times with Danny, and I think Danny, I know that Danny looked at Adam and he was like, yeah. You're getting it, you get this. And to see this young guy, he didn't grow up on this music, but here he is interacting with Danny Seraphin and sharing tips and stuff. And to see that was, for me, just personally very satisfying to see that. And
that's cool.
I think he knows what a great experience that has been, particularly for a drummer. For all of us playing with. Well,
and Danny's all for my money has always been sort of an unheralded player,
Oh yeah.
With all the little behind the scenes, garbage that has happened with the main band. But I mean, he's incredible. I mean, the horn section has had the good opportunity to play in his band when he travels through Chicago. And I remember the first gig. I was looking over at him and he's playing. I don't know if the drummers would know this difference between a match grip and traditional grip.
Sure.
And the traditionals are more like the jazz players play that way. And I'm looking at him and he's playing that way. And I'm thinking, this guy's a jazz player, man. He's not like a rock drummer. He's got this whole other, side of him that I don't know. I don't think he gets a lot of credit.
Yeah. Sure. So it has got, and that's similar to all of these players. We've all talked about playing in our cover bands and our rock groups and things, but you kind of have to have that jazz side of things too, to really, fully experience and show off that Chicago sound. It's a really great combo of both of those things. And you kind of see that in all of our players, I think. So.
And last but not least, there's Terry too. Terry plays trombone.
Oh, right? That guy. that dude's
I was afraid to tell these guys I played trombone when I heard Terry, because I don't want to ever pick up a trombone around Terry. Because
I got funny story about Terry though. We love Terry. Terry's just a monster. I first met Terry. We were both subbing on the Buckinghams. Didn't meet him till we're getting ready to play, and then we start playing. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, hey, are you a fan of James Pankow? And he goes, are you kidding me? So boom. I mean, it was just like the two of us were like, yeah, that Chicago sound. Right. And so we became friends. And, Terry is just a wonderful, wonderful player, man.
Well, and plus the fact he spent all those years in the military. I mean, he was on the, he was in the Falconers, right? The Air Force.
Yeah.
And any of the musicians I know that were spent their time playing music in the military have chops. They're like Iron Men. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, and Terry's definitely got that. He's got. It's like it's tough for Steve and me to keep up with.
Oh, he's just a rock of Gibraltar. But anyway, so the funny story. With the old, the band that before it became us. They've been going through a couple trombone players, and I'm just a trumpet player, and the guy kind of ran the band with an iron fist. And so finally, after a couple of days, I'm like, look, I got the trombone player you need. I'm like, trust me, this guy is phenomenal, right? He gets it. He knows the style. He gets it. He loves it. And so lo and behold, he went and auditioned the guy. He went and auditioned Terry. I'm like, really? Okay. And Terry calls me up and he's like, hey man, what's the deal? I was like, oh no. I was like, Terry, it's going to be okay. Don't worry.
Well, talk about the cowbell, the audition.
Yeah, the guy brought a cowbell and he started playing the cowbell, listening to Terry play. I was like, kind of conducting him. I was like, what are you doing? So I've said too much. But so
too much cowbell. That's what you said.
Yeah, too much. Thank you, Brian. Yeah. So long story short, Terry's he's one of the most mild-mannered cats, and he says, yeah, I'm going to do this because we love the music so much, and then even the first gig we're playing at the what theater was that? It just went. We played it several times and it just closed down. Pheasant Run.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so we're playing Pheasant Run, and I got there, just a little bit on the not late, but before sound check, but I didn't get there while set up. And I look on the stage, and it's kind of a smaller stage, and the horns are spread out like Terry's on the other side of the drummer, and I'm going, we can't do this, it's just, and this was Terry's first gig, I'm like, can't do this. What's going on? And I was told to just stand down. And I'm looking over like, Terry, don't hurt me. But and it turned out fine. But so that's a long story. But it's about a great guy.
Who runs the business of the band now? Do one of you guys do it, or do you have an outside manager?
Well, it like Jim said earlier, it's a pretty democratic process in a lot of ways. everybody does a lot of stuff. Tim's our IT guy, and Tim can tell you where to get the Chicago Experience live CD. I do a lot of the administrative, the booking, and I pay the checks. You know, I write the checks. Okay. Ron is a musical director, and Jim is our audio consultants, if you will. What else? Everybody just pitches in so much, and I think all of us can say, at least I can say from my perspective, we've all worked in so many different bands over the years, and you got some bands where there's a leader and everybody else is a side man. There's no side men here. This is a real band. Well,
I think every one of us have led our own, owned our own company or led our own bit, whatever, have played that role before. Yeah. So you don't have to tell people anything. It's like, we discuss things, and although Ron does kind of run the live, side of the show. I mean, he drives the bus in that way, but I mean, some of us have different agent contacts that will bring gigs, to the table. Sure. And, it's just a really cool thing that way.
Well, where can we find you on social media or the website or well, I guess Tim's the IT guy, right?
Tim?
Let Tim tell us about it.
www.thechicagoexperience.com, chicagoexperience.net, Facebook, any of the social media sites we're out there. We haven't been kicked off, which is a good thing. From the website or any of the social media sites, you can find the live CD, which is available for purchase or download.
Yeah, it's on Spotify. I know Amazon.
iTunes.
You can buy it at Amazon, right?
iTunes. It's on iTunes, and we're also, YouTube, the Chicago Experience on YouTube.
I tell you what, man, we're really just chopping it. I got the horn out today to do some practicing, because we have a gig at the end of the month, and it's our first job since October.
Yeah, late September, right? September. Late September, yeah.
And got to grease the wheel a little bit. It was rough.
So now you'll be a CD and me, correct?
Yeah. The last Saturday of this month. It's reservations. They're doing it's all social distance. Rules apply and whatnot. But I think they've got
except for the band.
Except for the band, right? Yeah. But we're it's a pretty big space, and right. So they're and the whole thing about it, man, you got to start sometime. We got to start doing.
And that'll be January 30th, correct?
January 30th. Yes.
Well, thanks guys for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. And
thank you very much. Thanks for not talking nasty about the guys that couldn't make it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah,
great.
In a private space, will be plenty of that.
Yeah, but thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for being here. Hopefully we'll see you guys very soon.
Hope so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Feeling stronger every day. Feeling stronger every day. Feeling stronger every day.
So that was the Chicago Experience.
That was quite an experience.
It was. Some great guys, some talented guys. It was fun talking to them and getting the inside scoop on their band.
That's right, their backstory, and such a nice group of gentlemen. They had nothing bad to say about the guys that didn't show up.
Yes.
Even though I tried to egg them on.
No eggs thrown here.
No eggs. Okay, I got you. But they get that new album is on, a new live album. It's awesome how they were able to put that together from a bunch of different shows.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And, live albums are where it's at. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was growing up, I loved the live albums.
Yep.
All the great songs were on there. There was just a lot of power in it, and loved them.
Humble Pie, Rocket of Fillmore was one of my favorites.
My favorite was Grand Funk, the live one.
Oh yeah,
I forget what that one was called.
I think it was called Grand Funk Live.
Yeah, it might have been called Grand Funk Live. You might be right. You may be correct. I thought it was called something else. Why? I don't know. I don't know why I can't think of it. It's it was called Caught in the Act.
Caught in the Act. That's right.
Caught in the Act. It was Grand Funk Live.
Well, maybe we'll talk to a Grand Funk tribute band next week. But this week we talked to the Chicago Experience and some good guys, and want to thank them for joining us. And be sure and check them out. You can check them out on Spotify and listen to their music. They're amazingly similar, sound amazingly like. Wait, that doesn't sound right. They sound a hell of a lot like Chicago.
That's right.
But they sound a lot like Chicago.
So once again, thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to check out the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 in beautiful downtown Joliet, Illinois. Sign up to be a charter member. Help them out.
And once again, thanks to GHS Strings for sponsoring the show.
And thank you, Paul, for being here this evening.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks. And likewise to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I think.
Until we meet again,
okay.
A bit of fond adieu to all of you.
And a fair fond adieu to you, too.
See you next week.
Bye.
The Rock and Roll Chicago podcast does not own the rights to any of the music that's played on this podcast.
The music is used to promote the band or musicians that are interviewed.
Rock and roll Chicago, rock and roll Chicago, my hometown. Well, I was born in the city, go to Rocket City, Chicago. Chicago rock and rollers are the best around. You don't